art makers out there. It's Christine here with a super simple and fun project for you to do at home while we're all stuck there. And let me mention that I've missed you all so much and just can't wait to be back together making art. But in the meantime, there are some really great things we can do at home together. So here I am with my piece of watercolor paper. And really, water and liquid watercolor together are so magical. And there's kind of no end to the experimentation that you can do with these. So I would encourage you and your parents to get a stack of paper and get your space ready, and let's make some art. I wanted to give you guys a really clear look at the materials we're using today so that when you go around your house to gather them, you know what you need. First, you need some kind of color. You can use a watercolor palette, you can use food coloring, or liquid watercolor. They'll all act the same. For paper, I have Xerox paper or printer paper or watercolor paper. I think watercolor paper works best, but if you don't have it, that's okay too. I have a paintbrush, a pipette, if you have that around the house, a jar of water, a squirt bottle, and some kind of absorbent cloth. I put out a paper towel here or an art rag, whatever you have. And of course, I put down a piece of newsprint over the table to keep it safe and dry. All right, that's it for materials. So I like to do this two different ways. So you can add water first or color first. So I'm going to show you two different ways. And maybe what I'll do actually is draw a line to sort of cut this paper in half. There we go. Okay, so I just did this. I don't know if you can see it. It's not a very straight line. Okay, so let's try adding water first. So this technique is called wet on wet, and some of you probably already know it. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and really just let this part of the paper get extremely wet. And you can tell it's wet because it's shiny, even though you can't really see the water because it's clear. I'm getting it really, 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 really shiny here, guys. Like, you can use as much water as makes sense. Okay, now this is what I think is the really fun part. So I've got my three different types of color because I didn't know what you guys have at home. So I'm going to actually start with just this ordinary watercolor palette. And I got it a little bit wet before, just because. So watch this, you guys. Because the paper is wet, the paint acts really differently on it, and it kind of absorbs, and to me it looks kind of like tie-dye. So you can keep going with that. I think I'm going to add a little bit of yellow or orange. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so that's one technique, right? So that's wet on wet, starting with a wet paper and adding color. Now, on my other side, let's try it the opposite, which is we're going to add color and then add water. So I like to always do multi-steps. Now, we tried a little bit with this type of color. So this is liquid watercolor, which is my favorite, but I know not everybody has it at home. And this is just regular old food coloring, which I think a lot of people do have for, you know, making cakes and cookies and things like that. So with this, I'm putting it in a teeny tiny jar, and I'm gonna just put it on my paper. Ooh, this is an experiment. And of course, you know, I always, you know me, I love a good art rag. So I'm gonna blot and kind of clean my paintbrush. I'm going to move the color around. Oh, this is really interesting. It's extremely dark. Look at that. Can you guys see it? It's extremely dark. And you know, one thing that can be kind of cool with this type of project too is to allow it to drip. Oh, did you see that, you guys? Thank goodness the color that covers the whole table. Now, I'm going to take my spray bottle and apply some water and just see what happens. Look, can you guys see how it's changing? It's getting super light and it's dripping like crazy. I love that. And oh, this is kind of cool. Check out how the water's changing. So it's kind of science and art together, which you know me, I love that. So these are two different ideas for today. Wet on wet, so water first, then watercolor, or I guess what would we call that? Paint first, then add water. So this is water first, then add paint. This is paint first, then add water. And there's kind of a limitless amount of things that you can do with this. So have at it, experiment, play with it, and send me the results. I would love to see some photos of your work. And that's it from me to you today. More art coming soon. I love you all and miss you. Take good care. I wanted to add a little bonus to this lesson for kids who are older. So maybe this is like art challenge of the day. So if you can see here, I've drawn a shape, which I'm thinking of as a leaf. And this is going to continue the idea of wet on wet. So I'm going to draw a couple of leaves. Maybe I'll just draw 3. So maybe it's some kind of like vine situation. You guys see that? So now I'll try and do this so you can see it. Let's see. So you kind of want to keep your paper flat, and you're going to fill in the shape that you just drew with water. And so you want to do it kind of carefully. I mean, you know me, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm filling that in with water. I can take a little green and add it into that area and kind of let it bleed and become a part of this like beautiful shape design. And so then I'm going to do it again. So filling that part in, and maybe I want a slightly lighter green. And so you're just letting the color move within that shape. Does that make sense? If I tip it, it's going to drip. So something like that could be a way to extend this for older students. And I think I just made a beautiful oops here. But at any rate, I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to do one more. Well, I did a beautiful oops. Okay, what is another color that could work for that? Let's do a dark green. So, I hope you guys get the idea, but again, there are lots of different ways to extend this and make it a little more complex for older students that want to drip. All right, more soon from me to you. Love you.